Blimey. This is one out of a jam jar you got here.
Warning. The House of Mystery contains demons, angels, elementals, magicians, wizards, apparitions, adult language, and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not enter the House of Mystery.
All right, then. On with the show.
Welcome, everyone, to the House of Mystery, the John Constantine and Friends podcast. I am Michael Flores, the curator and keeper of the House of Mystery. And in the house, finishing up a couple murders, is David, the ghost. Hello, David.
Hello, everyone.
So are you a racist apparition?
Hopefully not as racist as today's ghost.
Yeah, we don't want you to be a mean old lady. That's racist.
I could be a mean old trans lady. I don't know.
Oh, see that? Look at you. You're so progressive, David. Thank you.
Exactly.
So progressive. Yes. All right. Welcome, everyone. Today, you and I, Dave, are going to be breaking down the newest issue of John Constantine, Hellblazer number 6, titled Quiet, written by Simon Spurrier and art by Aaron Campbell. It's good to have a fresh new issue to dig into. I'll say that right off the bat.
Oh yeah, I'm really happy seeing a brand new issue, especially with a bunch of the delays that have been going on.
I know fucking COVID-19 all fucking things up. Never mind the millions of people being infected. I need my Hellblazer, David.
Oh yeah. We need that bitter pill of John Constantine to make us wake up in the morning.
If I don't get my comic books on time, I'm going to protest. I'm going to light motherfuckers' cars on fire. Give me some John Constantine, please. No, but seriously, it is good to have a fresh news issue to dig into. We'd been hanging for a bit there, not having that new issue. Did pave some roads to getting into other topics, which was nice. So we did do that.
Yeah.
So if listeners are new to our broadcast, they can just scroll through our feed and find our other various discussions. Right, Dave?
Oh, yeah. And look into the other rooms of the House of Mystery.
Yeah, if you want to. You can take just a peek and a few.
Just remember, don't mind the used condoms everywhere.
What the fuck?
You got to remember, House of Mystery.
What are you, a savage? You just leave used condoms? No one does that. Maybe if you're homeless, you drop it in the street, but where else are they going to put it? All right. So, yes, COVID-19, the pandemic that is all the rage today, has slowed up our John Constantine, but luckily we are here with an issue, a fresh new issue in hand. And speaking of viruses, this issue had some very telling moments for our protagonist, our trenchcoat-clad John Constantine. They just straight up called him a fucking virus.
I like that.
Yeah?
I personally really like that. I know that me and you have discussed about how they're portraying John Constantine in the current Hellblazer run, and titles like calling him a virus or calling him a disease.
Yeah.
Just makes sense for the character.
I had an ex that called me a disease once and a virus. I was like, what do you mean? I don't know what you mean by that.
It'll clear up in a couple days.
But I didn't say I gave her a disease. She called me a disease. Jesus, David, come on. Once again, your mind's in the gutter.
It's always in the gutter.
I'm self-deprecating, and you're trying to think gutter thoughts.
Oh, come on. Look at the universe that Constantine lives in. You can't tell me your mind can't
But
be
you're
in the
a true friend, though, Dave, because you're like, just tell her it'll clear up. What's she bitching about? So stupid. Yeah, dude, I have to agree, though. The aspect of the issue where they just not holding back.
They don't hold back.
John Constantine is a virus. That's what it said. And I'm like, fuck, that's good. Because it says so much. It's so on par with John Constantine as a character, the very person that we have been following for over 2 decades. And we'll get into that a little bit more because to me, that was one of the best moments, honestly, of this issue.
Where they use terms like that. My favorite term they used was right after they call him a virus and call him, I think it's a parasite. He parasites or something.
Yeah.
He parasites on people.
Yeah.
And that's what his character is.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, everyone that John has been involved with in the past has always been screwed over.
Yeah.
Because of John's decisions.
Yeah.
And for me, I like it when they do that because it really, especially since Spurrier started the whole story about being a better version of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, this is doing this shows what he once was, and now it kind of like refocuses us as the readers to actually focus on the bigger story being told.
Yeah.
John trying to be a better version of himself.
They're not holding back. They were very blunt.
Yeah,
He's a virus. This is who he is.
It's who he
hates
is.
He hates himself. He knows this. Yeah. I fucking live for shit like that. These are the things that I look for when I read a John Constantine book. And I know the same thing with you. I mean, I want to be taken inside our protagonist's mind.
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn about how he views himself. We already understand how the rest of the world views John Constantine. He is misunderstood. And we understand the perspective for the most part, how people think he is or who he is as an individual. But then what's most important to really understanding many times the subtext of someone's reactions or actions behind, or the I lost my train of thought because of that sound that you just played, Dave. What is that?
Sorry, that was actually my
Are you looking
phone
at
going
porn
off.
in the middle of a show, David?
I'm looking up naked photos of the Midnight Nurse.
The Midnight Nurse. Can you send those to me? No, but we always learn more about a character when we learn what they or how they view themselves or how they think of themselves. And the best part is when it contrasts, or I should say, completely. David, you fucked me up. I'm just gonna. Can I? You're a fucking virus.
I'm like John Constantine, yay! But I totally
Take 2, take 3, Dave.
But the thing is, I really do agree with you at that point. That basically, it's one of those core tenets of the character of John Constantine. It's.
There you
I
go,
don't think I don't here. I think a lot of fans today think John is just this cool smoking, witty, smarmy British guy who uses magic really awesomely, right?
Right.
And a lot of people forget
Can I
about
quote that for our topics discussed? John Constantine is a swarmy British guy.
pretty much. And here's the thing. I've been starting to notice that a lot of like newer fans think of John this way, but like if you read the character's history, all his really great character moments
Are like this.
Yeah. Where they focus in on the fact that John is not a good person
And how he views himself.
Yeah, his life sucks.
Yeah.
My favorite John Constantine story is when he has to deal with the lung cancer.
Yep.
And
It's a good one.
It's a really good one because I remember looking at it going, this is not the atypical story you would expect because it's a story that has a character that is so bitter, and inside he's a jackass. He's an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like going, the world is unfair to me. And it's like all of a sudden, like after you read that story, John seems like more of a realistic person
Yeah.
at that point.
I agree. And these are the moments we like the most, as I said, when it comes to John Constantine. And of course, we're not going to always get these types of things in every issue. Well, at least overtly. But with a character like this, like Constantine, all roads, even if just within the subtext, should take us into these areas. Show us just how much John Constantine either hates himself, views himself at that moment. And it's nice to see that the writer of these issues, Spurrier, understands that.
And it
because
adds,
it shows an understanding of who the character is.
And it adds this, I think the wrong term is tension, but it adds like this gravitas to John, watching John try to be better than that.
Right.
Okay, we know who John is.
That's the whole theme, right? Be a better version. We keep saying that. Be a better version of you. That's the theme, right?
And that is the theme of this entire story arc that Spurrier's taking us on.
And in order for him to be a better version, there's got to be some self-aware, right? He's got to be a little more self-aware. He's got to know who he is, and we need to know how he views himself. And that's why this moment is just so important in my eyes as a reader, when they just spell it out for us. He's a virus. And
he's a virus.
And speaking of spelling it out for us, typically in comic books, I don't like that. When they just tell us, this is John Constantine, he's a virus, and this is how he feels about himself. But because they creatively found a fun way to explain who he is, because they created a template or a formula for that because of the ghost and how it goes after certain people, and then it tells you about that person, that was actually a smart, clever way to flesh that bit out when it comes to Constantine. So it was smart. Dave, before we move any further, give me your initial thoughts on this issue.
My initial thoughts on this issue, actually, surprisingly, it's not my favorite issue out of the 6 issues now. Everything else up to this point has been A+ material. In this one, you get a good story, but it just seems to reiterate what we already know.
Okay, like
say for example about like all the hateful people in this series. We already know about like ghosts that are based on hate and everything else, because you got
you're
that
talking
in the
about
first,
the homeless guy.
the homeless guy. We got that in the first.
That was using what tulpas? Yeah,
tulpas to actually kill people. We already have something like that, and then all of a sudden we get this red ghost. There are points that I like it, but the core concept of it just seems like, okay, it's just a rehash. We already saw it.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, we've been talking about how the main story is about John becoming a better person of himself, or person than himself. And in this particular issue, it doesn't really feel like it.
Well, John Constantine kind of takes a back seat.
He takes a back seat. It's more about his helper at this point, which, I was one of the first ones that said I actually like. Unfortunately, Noah. I actually like the character of Noah.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah,
and I think it was really smart pairing this type of new character with John. Kind of like this is the way that John's going to do it. He has to teach this kid what it takes to be a good person.
Well, I feel like first off, I agree with most of what you're saying. I don't know if I would say it's not A+ work. However, your opinions are valid and they're pretty spot on. Constantine definitely did take a backseat to this, even though we did have that very important moment about him being a virus. Other than that, the politics of the issue is what was at the forefront. I would even say Noah was the lead. Honestly, this was a very political comic. There was a lot being stated, and as you said, you felt like it was kind of reiterating things that we had already been exposed to in earlier issues, and I would agree with that. But if racism is at the heart of this story arc, the myth arc, the main story, the bigger story, then I would understand why it would be reiterated in order to maintain the cohesiveness, the continuity of your story. And I should say the continuity of your theme, right?
Yeah.
So you do got to reiterate, but I think it all comes down to, is racism at the heart of the bigger story?
And honestly,
and if it's not, then yes, I would agree with you. You're just kind of reiterating for reasons of what? Why? Because the political landscape currently dictates that you should talk about this. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, because the way I thought about it is kind of like, if you're trying to actually make racism part of your overall story arc, then it would make sense if you tie that to
Absolutely.
John.
Absolutely.
If you tie
yeah.
it to John.
Yeah.
However, we don't see John as a racist. We really don't.
Well, he could be fighting racism, and maybe he's a civil rights activist now in 2020. That's the thing to do.
He's an
Dave.
Antifa.
Don't hate,
Don't hate.
Dave. Don't hate.
But-
Love.
That is true. And love well. But when it comes to this type of storytelling, I always feel, especially particularly in this issue, how does it tie to John? How does it tie to Constantine?
Dave, these are good questions. I'm not disagreeing, and I'm glad you're posing these questions. I, for one, like politics. I feel like politics can be used to tell some really meaningful stories.
Yeah,
So I'm okay with it, but it does need to lead to something much bigger,
exactly.
and it needs to lead to John Constantine. It needs to be
That's
connected
my
in a
important
very
part.
big way, and I
Yeah.
don't know how racism will be connected to John Constantine unless he fights a villain who is a racist piece of shit who's
Exactly.
at the very forefront of the political leaders in Parliament.
And if we didn't have, let's say that this wasn't a Constantine comic and it was a comic that's centered around Noah, right?
Right.
Then I would say, okay, this is really great. You're connecting this story
Right.
to Noah's growth. Cool.
Yeah, but he's also a guest. He's also not a guest. He's arguably the co-star of the comic. You get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
when you have a co-star, you do delve into stories that are about them sometimes. Sometimes you have a couple issue arcs. Sometimes you just have a single issue like this one. So, again, your points are valid, Dave, but I don't think we can fully come to a conclusive thought on whether or not this will be meaningful until we've seen the full story.
Until especially in the end of the panel, when you finally actually you finally allude again to one of the elements that you introduced in, I think it was either 2 or 3, about the Parliament. Okay, it's something bigger about the government. Call back to that. But again, you didn't give us a lot to actually say, okay, what is the bigger story? It almost feels like this issue was taking baby steps.
Oh, okay, hold on a second. Let's backtrack just a bit. I feel like they're connecting the dots. This issue did nothing different than the other ones, meaning you have a story, right? You have a story that it maybe feels close-ended, like the Willow Tree story, right?
Yeah.
But then at the end of each of those stories, you find out that each of these stories, though close-ended, are connected to the bigger story. Let's just call it the myth arc, okay? And this one did the exact same thing. So I think what you're having a problem with, Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to help you walk through your issues a bit. Perhaps you want John to fight something more on the supernatural level opposed to a political racist.
level. Yeah.
A political leper.
A political level. Political level.
Yeah, maybe you are like, well, why is John Constantine being positioned? Because it does feel like he's being positioned to go up against someone who is radicalizing individuals for whatever reason to create hate crimes on people.
Yeah.
Why would John fight someone that
That.
does that? So I get that, and we will need to be introduced to more supernatural phenomenon before I can again come to a final conclusion. But so far for me personally, it works. I do feel like you about some of the writing decisions, but it is pretty damn great though at the same time. So let's get into all the additional details here. The colors are done by Jordi Belair, which are just amazing. I am a huge fan of Aaron Campbell before I read Hellblazer, the new run here. And since I have read these 6 issues now, I have just come to appreciate Campbell's work that much more because the way him and Belair are working together, first off, Campbell's work is already so alive as it is. I follow him on Twitter, and I see some of the early drafts that he puts out there, the black and white, the sketches, I guess you can call some of them. Everything is there already. I could totally enjoy the hell out of this issue or these issues if they were simply black and white. But that being said, when you see the finished versions with Belair's color,
It takes it that extra step.
it really does. It manages to complete the visuals in a way that fully gives life to this horror noir.
Yeah.
It's so good. The art just blows me away. I absolutely love the abstract panels that Campbell and Spurrier put together. There's an aura of mystery to the image because at times you've got to spend time interpreting them. And when I have lots of time in my day, I enjoy doing that. I'm like, all right, I like that. A little abstract. That's something they have done quite a bit now with the let's just call them the monsters that they
Yes.
deal with.
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, I love the fact that by page 3, we get that abstract, that full page of the Red Ghost,
Yeah.
and I'm like going, the colors are just spot on. The way that it's drawn just sets the tone that basically this is a horror comic. This is the scare factor right here.
Yeah.
And you're right, Campbell gets it. I mean, we've
It's really
blown
good.
him with all of his work that he's done throughout the series already, but his work is still spot on.
Yeah, I like it. I do like that you have to spend some time looking at some of those images. Sometimes I just want to read, and that's why I have to be in a certain mood to read this run of Hellblazer, because I love the fucking art, but it's not an issue that you can crack open on a like, I got to hit the gym in an hour. Let me read this real fast. I have to actually set aside time, typically when I go to bed, before I watch TV, and when I drift off into the dream world.
I don't know if you want these images in your dreams.
Oh, I do. I do. That evil ghost was kind of hot. Not the real version of her. No. She was hideous. Even Noah was all about it. He was like, damn, girl.
That was actually kind of funny.
Let me holler at you. Yeah. Well, he can't holler because he's a mute, but he's like, let me write words at you, girl.
Let me spitball you.
Yeah. What was I saying, Dave? Why'd you distract me again? You are a virus this episode.
You want these images in your dreams.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I have to actually sit down and find time to read, knowing, all right, this is going to take some time. I'm going to have to go back a couple times and reread a few of the panels and really inspect and analyze the art, because the art isn't simple. It's not. And I know I've received some feedback on our discussions, and I bring this up purposely.
Okay.
Because I have received messages from our listeners, and they've said, guys, I just don't feel what you guys feel. Like with the Hellblazer, you guys are blowing it, you guys love it, but it's not bad, but it's not that great either. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Really? And the gentleman expanded his reason, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that it's not an easy read.
Yeah.
It takes effort. I'm like, well, that's just how it is. Not everything's going to be a smooth, easy ride, but I don't think that diminishes the quality. If anything, it's kind of highbrow. Is that just me being a pretentious douche saying that?
I don't think so. I think that it really comes down to what kind of comic book reader are you, because
and also in the mood, like you have to be
in a certain mood to read certain books.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna all of a sudden jump from a kiddie, say the ones that we've covered, like Star Wars with the Vader's Castle.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Star Wars Adventures.
And then I'm going to jump right to Constantine.
Oh, dude, yeah. You got to have a mindset. Dude, it's no different than watching...
It's a mindset.
It's no different than watching, let's say, CSI, right? And then going to watch True Detective on HBO.
Yeah.
Like, it's a completely different mindset.
It's a different mindset as a reader. And I understand that there are readers out there that, I'm trying to think of a nice way of putting it.
I don't
want to actually make it sound bad or anything.
No, it's
because this is mainstream audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Mainstream audiences don't want to spend like 20 minutes staring at a page.
Yeah, and I don't think there's an intelligence factor involved in that. I just simply think it depends on your taste. And you have to have the proper mindset. Like I just said, I can't sit down and read Hellblazer, this new run by Spurrier and Campbell, in the afternoon. Personally, I can't do it. In the middle of things, I can't take a break. I'm like, oh, I'm going to read this really fast. It needs to be the thing I'm going to do that night. It has to be no different than saying, hey, on Sunday nights I watch this specific TV show on HBO. I have to have a designated night to read it. And that's just how it is, because now I'm aware of how this read goes. I don't think it's an intelligence factor. I just think it's a mood thing, right?
I feel it's a mood thing. It's like being a speed reader. When you're a speed reader, all of a sudden you want to pick up the gist of the story. Fine,
right?
Bang.
It's like if for example, when I want to look at porn, Pornhub is good for those clip videos, right? 30 seconds, get the job done. But when I want to make love to myself on a Friday night, I'm gonna watch a full fucking movie.
And you feel like you got the endurance. You want to spend maybe an hour or two,
make myself proud that night. What a bunch of losers. All right, so the synopsis. As Noah's mother lies in the hospital deep in a coma with no prognosis of awakening, John Constantine makes the acquaintance of a spirit one with a terrifying significance for all of England. All right, so we get a timely story, as we had alluded to numerous times during our intro. Yeah, that was just our intro. We get a timely story about racism and hate. And I say timely, but let's be real. Racism has always been here and will always be here. So this story could have come out 6 years ago or in 10 years, and it would still be timely. And that's why I feel like Spurrier has a good thing here. This is one of those one-off stories that will stand the test of time, that you can pick up and read and say, issue number 6, you want to read Constantine, get a little flavor of John Constantine and his world? Here you go, number 6. And it still holds up in 2 or 3 years, guaranteed. I would say in 15 years it's going to hold up. Yeah. Racism is always going to be a part of society. There's no getting rid of it. And because of that, something like this, just like some of our great literature, stands the test of time. It's a positive message about racism and hate versus forgiveness. And at the end of the day, forgiveness or kindness is far more powerful than hate. That was essentially the message.
Yeah. And I did really like the conclusion of it. I actually got hit in the feels when Noah basically said, hey, I wrote out, I'm sorry no one visited you.
Yeah.
And
what if she hates him even more because she doesn't know how to read? She's like, what the fuck you doing?
That would just be so bad.
I can't read, you idiot. You're so insensitive. Now she's going to go kill mutes.
Kill mutes. But you're right. It still is a timely thing.
Yeah.
Showing kindness, doing a story about kindness prevailing over hate.
Yeah. And they do all this by crafting a narrative that essentially is focused on Noah, who's spending a lot of time at the hospital because of his mother, which they had set that story up about, 2 or 3 issues ago?
Yes.
If not in the first issue, if memory serves me right.
Yeah.
And Noah catches a woman killing a patient. One thing leads to another. Constantine gets involved. And we find out that this woman doing the killing is actually a detached spirit or a ghost of another patient in the hospital.
Yeah.
And she's killing non-whites because of hate. She's a racist.
She's a racist.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
And to make things more interesting, she was radicalized intentionally. And we'll get into that in a second. She's a woman who has been completely immobilized by severe cancer. She's basically dead, unable to talk, move. And all of this has fed her hatred.
Yes.
As she watches these people who are non-Anglos moving in, taking things over.
And meanwhile, she's losing everything.
Right. And through Constantine's wit, the true greatest detective, sorry, Batman, we find out that allegedly she had a son that would come to visit her on her deathbed because of various reasons pertaining to racism. Each letter was designed to sow seeds of resentment toward non-Anglos. And at first, you're like, man, her son's an asshole. Right? You're like, this son's an asshole. And then by the end of the issue, you find out she has no son. And that this is part of the bigger story. That these letters and the instigation of hatred and racism stems from the Commonwealth. I believe that's what it was, right?
Yes. Basically, the people up in the House of Commons.
The House of Commons. That's what it is. Yes, not the what's the Commonwealth? Isn't that the peasants? That's us. Right?
I think that's us.
Yeah. Well, fucking racist.
We're all racist.
Yeah. The House of Commons. And we'll get into that also in just a moment here. First off, the idea that this hatred, it's so powerful, right? This true deep-seated hate was powerful enough that it gave her the ability to leave her body in the form of a spirit or an astral projection, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the idea.
Yeah.
What a poetic way to show how powerful hate
can be. Yeah.
And the opposite side of that is kindness, which is how Noah dispatches the spirit. He shows the hateful woman forgiveness and kindness. And that's, again, a beautiful message for how powerful kindness can be as well.
Yeah, and the imagery of, like extinguishing the flame.
Yes.
Extinguishing the flame of hate, I thought was really well done.
It's a beautiful allegory of the power of kindness during a time of such division.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. And I say a time of such division because, yes, racism is very timely. Again, any decade. But the divisiveness of people right now in this current landscape, it's probably higher than it's ever been.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to get into politics because it's just, this is not the show to do it. And plus, I'm burnt out in politics.
Well, I was gonna wait for you to go there, or if it was okay if I were to bring it up.
You bring it up, Dave. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, I agree that basically this issue overall is good.
Yeah.
It's a good issue.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't know if it's just the political landscape right now,
right,
and being inundated constantly, hammered over the head with how bad the world is right now. And I look at this story and I'm like going, I'm tired. I can't, I can't really invest my entire self into the story. And it kind of I found myself actually, as I said, it's not my favorite issue out of the past couple of issues of Hellblazer, but I started asking myself, am I not liking this because of the subject matter that it's touching on?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. It could be. I know when Spurrier, I follow him on Twitter, and I know when he tweeted out about this being, he said something about this being some of his greatest work and alluded to the fact that it's political, right? That it's delving into what's going on in today's society. And I didn't roll my eyes because I like Spurrier and I love Hellblazer, but I groaned a bit because I'm like, oh shit. And I don't mind if we use relatable aspects of life to devise a story. That's what makes things feel real. It makes things have more substance. I'm okay with that. But at the same time, I was like, fuck, I hope this isn't on the nose.
Well, because if it's...
You get what I'm saying? I'm hoping that it's just a story true to human nature, opposed to, hey, this is this person, just so you know, this is this person, this is this political party, this is this political party. Because I am also burnt out on politics, and I know that it's a very important time to talk about things like this. But at the same time, I don't think most people read Hellblazer to get into Spurrier's ideology. That's not why people read Hellblazer. Yes, Hellblazer's always been a platform for political thought, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And most forms of art, Dave. In fact, some of the best forms of art are used to enact social change. And I'm 100% about that.
Oh, yeah.
So this is, getting into a risky territory, in my opinion, for the masses. There may be people who are turned off, and it has nothing to do with them agreeing with Spurrier. I think most people can agree, unless you're a shithead, that racism is bad.
Well,
I mean, that's a no-brainer.
That's a no-brainer.
You're an idiot if you aren't against racism. But that doesn't mean there aren't many of us out there who are also like, listen, man, I turn on the TV, I turn on a radio, I open up social media to say hi to my mom, and like a couple memes, and I'm just fucking blasted with this shit. So there are going to be some people who are just kind of, this issue might weigh heavy because it's like, all right, this is just more of what we're hearing.
Yeah, I would understand if, say, if you've listened to me and you, for our listeners out there, if you've listened to me and Mike, we have always been defenders of good writing. Good writing. Give us a good story. Give us a good narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you do something like, I don't know why this seems to be a difficult thing for a lot of writers nowadays, but when you do a political story or ideological story and throw your own ideals into it.
Yeah, ideology, yeah.
It takes away from the narrative. And
yeah, but is it? Yeah, go ahead.
And I kept, that's why earlier in the story, I kept asking myself, after the first time I read it, is how does this tie to John being a better person of himself?
That I agree with you. That's what it comes down to, because it would be an error to say that an artist doesn't put his ideology in the things he works on, because they absolutely do.
Absolutely.
Even if it's like, let's say they're not even aware of it. We're all a product of where we grew up and our upbringing and the things we surround ourselves with. And then we take that, if we're a writer or a movie director or any other creator, and you're going to put those thoughts, even if you're not doing it intentionally, you're going to put it there. There's no way to keep a creator's ideology out of their piece of work. There's no way.
Yeah, there's no way.
But as long as you're focused, and I don't care if I agree with you or disagree with you, like there's a lot of people I follow on social media, artists, creators, that are kind of a little too far to one side, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like whether it be far left or far right. And I'm like, listen, as long as you're not an asshole, I'm in the middle of the road 99% of my life anyways, and I'm open for all people's thoughts. Just give me a good fucking story, and I don't have to agree with your ideology. But I want to enjoy your story regardless. I can see past political beliefs if I don't agree with it. But they do have, in terms of Constantine, all roads do need to lead to Constantine, no matter what. No, it doesn't matter what your political message is. At the end of the day, what is this going to do for John Constantine?
For John Constantine.
Right. And that's your point, right?
Yeah, and that's my point.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair question and a fair want.
You get to the very end, and don't get me wrong, I thought the end was cool. I like that twist.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was great.
Where all of a sudden Noah turns around and all of a sudden goes, holy shit.
Dude, yeah, it was good.
And I was like going, that's cool. But the one thing that nagged me was like, John already knew how this was going to turn out. As he mentioned, he just wants to find out who's doing this. Okay. But if John already knows about this, then it's kind of like, how does this make John a better person?
Sometimes it's not about the character himself. Sometimes it's about the reader. And I feel like in this issue, it's about what we're going to learn about him and where he's at mentally. You have to remember how the story started. Time has passed, and chronologically for us, 6 months, 7 months if you include the one shot, so we might have forgotten. But you have to remember, he came face to face with Chaz, and then he died. Chaz hated him.
Chaz hated his guts,
and he's alone. He has no one. There was even a moment where he tried to call Chaz, right?
Yeah,
forgetting he was dead. So this, for me, this issue is adding those layers, peeling back, I should say, those layers, giving us a little bit more insight into John Constantine. This is, of course, the John Constantine is a virus aspect.
Yes.
Without that, I would probably say this issue was lacking. But because we got that, we learned something really important about John Constantine that we can now put into that memory bank and say, all right, and we can recall it later when we read another issue that this may pertain to.
Yeah.
Now, also, Dave, think about this. I mean, this isn't an easy read in the way, as I said, this isn't an easy read. Sometimes you have to look for what's being said because Spurrier is a good writer. What about the lesson, right? There's a lesson here as well, possibly for John, right? Think about this. Number one, his self-hatred or the hatred that he has for himself in the terms of how he acts and the way he treats people, the fact that he's a parasite and that he's aware of it, which is the worst thing when you're aware of your flaws and you're not able to change it. First off, that stays true to his characterization and reminds us that John is aware of what he is. And I'm sure that will pay off. Number one, he hates what he is, self-hatred.
Yeah.
Now, the lesson in this issue is that forgiveness and kindness are more powerful than hate. So in order for him to change, must he forgive himself? Again, that's something to think about. I don't know if that was intentional, but it seems like it is.
You bring up a very valid point. I mean, when you put it at the very end, when John's talking about kindness and how Noah did it. Noah was the one who pulled it off, and
Right.
John basically applauds him.
So if
John you kind of get the sense that if you were to show John the same kindness, he probably would not return it because he hates himself.
Right. So in order for him to vanquish this self-hate, he needs to forgive himself. He needs to show himself some kindness. If that's the questions or the parallel story to what was happening, if that's what Spurrier was doing, then I think this issue works just fine.
Well, you bring up a very valid point, especially since I'm looking at the page where the very really well done parasite scene is, and Spurrier uses emphasis on certain words. Parasites, annihilate, guilt, hates, and he ends it with be, which is the line is the tragedy is that he continues to be it.
Right.
And
I think that's
something that I missed, but after you explained it, looking back at it, it makes much more sense.
I mean, you're using the word hate. And then this ghost woman hated so much. She was toxic. She was cancerous. I feel like it's about John Constantine more than you may think. It just takes a little time to read
it.
And I will be the first one to say this isn't an easy read, especially this issue. It isn't. I had to read this twice and go back numerous times to each page. And I'm not an idiot.
Well, I mean, even like right now, as I said, I'm going through it and I'm pulling new things out of it. Looking at, the emphasis of certain words. And like you go from where they're talking about how John hates himself and and the tragedy of him being, he continues to be it. And then they go, maybe it looks like 2 pages and suddenly the woman, similar color, similar contrast, talks about how she should be dead. And, she continues on, but watches and hates the endless silence.
Mm-hmm.
Emphasis on endless. And you parallel that with John just a couple pages earlier talking about how he continues to hate himself.
And also, she was lonely, right? No one came to visit her. What have we seen in the previous issues? John's alone. He's isolated. No one's here for him. His only 2 friends that had survived, one died later, and then the other one abandoned him and went to, what, the America. The United States. So, I feel like if you look for it, it is there.
It's there.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I like the fact that you brought that up too, because just a couple of thought balloons later, all of a sudden John says no visitors. That's what they say. You don't get a single one. Not ever.
Yeah, see, dude, it's in the subtext, man. It's there.
And that's the thing. I'm pulling this out now. That's how difficult.
It's not an easy read.
It's not an easy read.
It's not. You gotta really pay attention. All right, Dave. So let's go to a very quick break, and then when we get back, let's get into our final thoughts and our RMD score. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the House of Mystery. Of course, if you joined us just now because you're listening to our replay on RM Channel 001 during Geek Out Saturday, hello and welcome. And you can catch all of our shows, past, present, and the beginning of this show via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. Just search the House of Mystery. Also, if you want to help us stay on the air through 2020 and into 2021, you can actually pledge to our Patreon page. We do additional content from all different types of geekdoms, fandoms. You can also pledge $1 to help us if you just want to help us out. $1 does help, believe me. We have a lot of costs. It's a high-quality podcast, a lot of equipment if you're watching the video right now behind me. And all of this is so that we can have a professional-sounding broadcast.
Some of the best sounding broadcast.
Yeah, so head over to patreon.com/RainmanDigital and pledge $1 or more. All right, Dave, do you want to start things off with your RMD score? And
sure,
final
I
thoughts?
can do that. Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
All right. My RMD score, as I said, this is not one of my favorite issues, and my score kind of reflects it.
Son of a bitch.
But it's still a hell yeah. It's still a hell yeah, but it's probably the lowest scoring of the Hellblazer issues that we've covered up to this point. It's at a 78.
All right.
The art is fantastic.
A 78?
A 78.
Holy shit, Dave. What are you smoking over there?
It's just...
You don't need to justify. It's fine. I'm just giving you shit.
But, like, the art's great and all. But you've alluded to it earlier in the thing. Sometimes the art can take away from the writing, and you feel like I have to read something multiple times just to get what's being told because the artist is trying to convey what his script is saying. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the writer has their script that they're saying. So this is probably the first issue where I've actually had issues about that. Where
you would like what some of the abstract scenes to be more clear?
Yeah, a bit more clear. Probably tone it down a bit, tone down the abstract a little bit, because they were getting the story loud and clear. It was pretty much loud and clear. It's a very easy story when you take a look at it and break it down. It's a very easy story that's relatable. Just like what we said, it's about racism. Right. Everyone understands this. No one's going to say, I don't know why everyone gets angry at racist. There's a reason why we get angry.
What voice is that? Is that a Sesame Street character?
Yeah, that's like one of the that's one of like the Nazi Muppets.
Wow, I missed that episode of Sesame Street.
Sesame Street, but
it's called Gestapo Street.
This was actually the first Gestapo Street, but this was one of the first issues that I've ran into concerns. Basically, just with the writing, it's kind of like, okay, where are you going with this? We're now in 6 issues. What is the next step? That's what I keep asking myself.
You want something directly connected to the bigger story at this point.
It should start revving up by now.
Okay.
And we know this. Spurrier's a fantastic writer.
He's very good, yeah.
He's very good. I don't have any concerns that he's going to fumble. There's no, he's not going to do that. But
I'm amazed at you right now, Dave, because you're a huge Spurrier fan.
Absolutely. I love his work.
Yeah.
But at this point, I was hoping to see him rev up his story.
So this issue's not your favorite.
It's not my favorite.
Interesting. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Overall,
would you
bonuses?
Like to kick Spurrier while he's down?
No.
Maybe stomp on poor Campbell's head?
Actually,
you fucking asshole.
The one thing that I will give Spurrier a lot of credit. Mm-hmm. I love how he's introduced a brand new character in Noah and has made him, for me, actually very likable.
Yeah, I agree.
I like Noah.
I agree with that too.
And I hope that further on, Noah's around for a while now. Like, I think he pairs up with John Constantine very well. We don't have Chaz, and
He's the new Chaz.
he is,
Yeah.
but I'm going to say something that basically a lot of old school fans might start throwing fruit at me. I think Noah could be better than Chaz
Okay.
because John is learning how to truly treat a partner. We're going to actually possibly see John get a decent sidekick character.
He's
in
got
Noah.
to have learned from something, right?
Yeah.
Even though we want Constantine to always be the broken person he is, there still needs to be moments of growth.
There needs to be moments
this
of growth.
relationship with Noah might be an example of that.
And don't get me wrong.
I would like to see that, actually. That'd be nice.
I like the relationship between him and Chaz, but there's more depth here that you can do with Noah
Yeah.
than Chaz.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest pros in this issue. Like, he's doubled down on this character.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to give this issue a 90%.
Wow, that's probably one of the largest gaps between me and you that we've ever had.
Well, I think I've rated every other issue, I think like 98 or 99.
Yes.
So this is lower for me as well. I do love it. I do enjoy it. It's a good story. I mean, I can't shit on it. It's great. It's, as I said, it's timely. I am trying to be fair here. I'm a little burnt out on politics.
And I think that's why my score is as loaded as it is too, because you brought it up in the middle of the show.
Now, Dave, I do like the idea of racism, and I love the allegory of kindness and forgiveness. That's awesome. It's good.
It's good storytelling.
It really works. I liked it quite a bit. I'm more patient than you. I know we're on issue 6, but I am enjoying that we're getting those bits at the end that are adding to the bigger story, that are connected to the myth arc, the overall main story. I do like that. I am intrigued and interested. I will say this, though. Now that we understand racism is at the heart of whatever's happening, I think that's clear. The fact that Constantine says at the end of this issue that it's the same person that has been doing all these things, right?
Yes.
Okay. I really hope we're not getting a...
Stereotypical?
No, I just... We all know what's happening with politics right now. And if the main villain of the story and their agenda is to radicalize people and create hate in the country, I feel like that's a little on the nose and too far aligned with certain people's thoughts on the current state of our governments. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. It's too...
And although I agree...
It starts getting heavy-handed.
Right. I'm hoping it becomes more aligned with the supernatural.
Yeah.
But then again, dude, if this all plays out as we know Spurrier can write, at the end of the day, I may be like, fuck, that's fucking good. And what I just said may not matter.
That's the thing.
Because everything for me comes down to writing.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how it all turns out. This does bring us to the end of our show, though, Dave. I want to thank everyone for listening to our discussions. I want to thank you, David.
Thank you.
And that's it for us.